Closed captioning for Lakeland Currents is supported by the Minnesota Department of Commerce, Telecommunications Access Minnesota, and Nisswa Tax Service. Nisswa Tax Service, tax preparation for businesses and individuals. Across from City Hall in Nisswa and online at nisswatax.com.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Lakeland Currents, where tonight we're going to talk about a very unique program that's offered by the University of Minnesota. In fact, we think it's probably the only program like this in the United States. It's called the Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships. And this evening, we're going to be visiting with people from the Central region. There is more than one region involved in this particular program. And so this evening, I'd like to welcome Linda Euland, who is the Executive Director of the Central region.
Yes, thank you.
And one of her board members, Tenley Lund, who is also the web manager or the web editor for the Lake Country Journal, which is probably Minnesota's finest magazine, I would say for sure.
I would say so.
Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Linda, what is the Central Regional Sustainable Development Partnership all about?
That's kind of a long name, isn't it?
It is a long name.
The Regional Sustainable Development Partnership Program was started at the university, through the university and a group of citizens approximately 10 years ago, and there are 5 partnerships in the state. And the intent was to connect citizens with university faculty and staff to work on research, education, and outreach projects that the citizens felt they needed to help their communities. And we focus in several areas. Agriculture, natural resources, tourism, and community-based energies are our focuses. So we connect the university faculty with the citizens to work on projects that will help fulfill needs of the citizens.
And you said there is one part of the state where this is not actually active right now because of the financial wherewithal.
Yeah, when the program was established 10 years ago, the legislature funded 3 partnerships. And the next biennium, they added 2 additional partnerships. And I think the intent always was to add other partnerships, but that didn't happen. And so right now there are 5 partnerships in the Northwest, Northeast, Central, West Central, and Southeast. But there's a big hole in the Southwest part of the state.
So how would this affect the average person, this particular program? Let's just say it's the average people in Brainerd or the average people in Bemidji. How can they learn about it, and what does it have to do with them?
Well, hopefully they'll learn a little bit about it through this program. But it's a resource. I think the University of Minnesota is a resource for all citizens. You know, we're a land-grant university. You know, our intent is to bring the university to its citizens. And this is really a unique model for the citizens to really be the drivers in identifying what do our communities need, what kinds of projects are we interested in, you know, how can we promote more community-based energy systems, how can we protect our natural resources. And Tenley, as a member of the board, for example, I mean, she's one of the decision makers for the Central region, which covers an 8-county area in central Minnesota.
So each partnership's region is unique. You're not really, you don't have, I mean, I'm sure you have general guidelines for how you're going to operate, but you can decide at your regional level what it is that you want to do. How are those decisions made?
The board, right now we have 12 people on the board. There are a couple of people who are actually University of Minnesota people, and then the rest of us are citizen people who volunteer to be on the board. We've got different backgrounds and different expertises, and we were selected basically so that we would represent a cross-section of the Central region in the 4 specific areas that the regional partnerships focus on, which are agriculture and local foods, natural resources, tourism, and energy and renewable energy sources. So a lot of us have, like my background is more in the tourism area, and then as a board, we consider idea forms and or proposals that are actually come from citizens in the area on, and we look for things like how it fulfills one of these 4 areas, and how the collaboration among the group that is presenting the proposal and other groups in the area. Community vitality, how it would help the citizens in the area and help the community. And then as a board, we rank or we evaluate these proposals that are presented to us, and that's how we come up with our decisions. It's citizen-driven, it's community-based, and what we do is we then bring the resources of the University of Minnesota to these groups that are seeking, that are presenting proposals that have
The University of Minnesota obviously is funded in part by the legislature, but a lot of the resources at the university do not come from state funding. Are these projects that you work with funded by the legislature?
Yes, this was a legislatively funded initiative 10 years ago, and it comes through the university, specifically through the Ag Experiment Station at the university. So our main campus is the St. Paul campus. So at the university, we're sort of officially a partnership with the Extension Office, that department, with the Ag Experiment Station, and with the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences. But when we have projects, we can look for faculty and staff to help support these projects from any department at the university, the Tourism Center, the Carlson School, the Humphrey Institute, Public Health, Architecture, changing the Center for Changing Landscape we've used a number of times. So that's, I think, one of the real advantages for the citizens of the state, because through the partnerships, we help identify what are the appropriate resources at the university that can help support this project, whether it is in research, education, or outreach.
It's really an amazing approach, I think, to try to get people to understand what resources the university does have,
right,
and to put those on the table, so to speak, for the people
right,
in our areas.
And it's confusing, I think, to citizens too. When I started this job 4 years ago, I didn't have, as much information about what are the resources that the university has as I do now. And I think, this is something that the partnership really can do, is help be a conduit to those resources. As part of my job to say, well, let's see if I can find some people or some faculty, applied economics faculty, or whatever department that can help this project.
We just worked on a project that was phosphorus testing in the Bungo Creek area of the Pine River. And the resources that the university brought, number one, they have this incredible technical equipment that can do the testing. Then they trained citizens who live in the area to read and evaluate and work go and make the readings and fill in the charts and send the information to the university for evaluation. And it was an incredible partnership, because without the U of M, without the university's resources, that project never could have been accomplished. You couldn't afford it. You would never have the expertise. The resources of the U of M are incredible. They're extensive, and a lot of these people are internationally known experts in their field. And through the partnerships, if I want to put together a project for testing the water in Bungo Creek, I can access those resources. It's really amazing.
How does your board determine what kind of projects you want to tackle?
I think we start, basically, it's the 4 areas that we focus on: the agriculture, the tourism, the energy, and the I've forgotten the other one. Anyway, those 4 areas, we start there. We look very strongly at citizen-driven, whether or not it's citizen-driven, whether or not there's an explained need that this group of citizens is trying to address. We look at how it would help the community. It's interesting, among those 4 areas that we focus on, they're not clear-cut. They're very frequently intertwined. And we weigh that, and then we weigh, one of the things we do is we provide seed money to see if to help somebody get their project started. And then it's amazing how they can turn out. And a lot of times we're surprised. So,
Right.
so the evaluation, the way our particular board actually works is there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of discussion among the board members, and it's interesting sometimes the decisions we come up with.
Could you give us an example of like a seed money project, something that you've done with your board?
We just did one last year that the nature photography one.
That's a great project.
And when it was first proposed, now did they work with Park Rapids and White Earth?
And White Earth Reservation, yeah, were the two proposed schools.
And when it first came to the board, we hesitated on a lot of different levels, and we just really weren't sure, and we did a lot of discussing, but we decided to fund a portion of it to help him get started. You know more about the background of that the individual.
Yeah, there was a university person that was involved as well as another retired school teacher, and they're really focusing on getting students, young people, into the woods and using photography for different kinds of curriculum. But it's centered on getting students outside to photograph things, and then they have curriculum now where it matches with math classes, science classes, that kind of thing. But it turned out to be a really, really good project. And so there's a lot of small projects that we would never think could blossom into what they have. Another one was our carbon sequestration project. We had a man from the Wadena area that really had this concept of wanting to put together some kind of a guide so that people would know more about what's carbon sequestration and how might it be an opportunity for landowners to make more money from their land by selling carbon credits. And so we got a student that did some work, did some research, and now the Landowner's Guide to Carbon Sequestration is in fact a resource that Extension uses when it goes out and does classes on carbon sequestration. So, that's how some of these small projects can really become long-lasting or sustainable, which is part of what's in our name, is Regional Sustainable Development Partnerships.
I know it's a word with complex meanings, but just maybe you could talk just briefly about what it means in terms of your partnership.
Well, it's sustainable as kind of seems to be overworked or overused, but I really look at it as the choices that we make, that this generation makes, will not deny future generations opportunities with what we do, how we use our resources. And I see that there's obviously an environmental aspect to it and our natural resource use. But there's also, I think, an economic component to it, that what we do has to be economically sustainable. And there's a social dimension, how it affects a community and helps sustain the community and makes that community diverse and vital.
How do people find out about how to go through the process of submitting an idea to you?
Well, they can go on the website, but we have had, this is another interesting aspect in some of the way we develop our projects, is through our Having Your Say sessions. And, we had 2 of them this year, and we had a meeting where we got people from the communities together. And we had a meeting in Pine River and another one in Staples. And we talked a little bit about the partnership, and then we had some discussion. And from those discussions, we generated some ideas that might become projects. So some of what I'll be doing this summer is working with those people that were at those meetings to say, is this kind of a project that we can develop together? And then that would be proposed to the board in the fall. So
I think we should remind people at the end of the program too, but what is the website that people can go to? www.regionalpartnerships.umn.edu. It's easier to remember than the sustainability part.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
For
and
sure.
then you can click on whichever region you're interested in, and it tells a little bit about our projects, and then there's a section that says propose a project, and that gets you to all the forms and tells you about the process and stuff.
What are the counties that are involved in your particular central region?
Okay, Cass and Crow Wing, Wadena, Ottertail, I have to count them on my finger, Hubbard, Becker, Todd, Morrison.
So you have about 8 or 9?
8 counties.
8 counties. And where is the area in the state where there isn't a project going on, or that partnership?
A southwest part of the state.
Southwest? And is that a pretty large chunk of the
it is.
Southwest?
Yeah, it is a pretty large area. I'm trying to visualize the map, but yeah, it's that whole southwest part of the state.
And how are your projects measured in terms of accountability back to the U?
Well, you know, we do have an evaluation database, and so we look at how the money that we provide and the resources we provide, how that's leveraged with other resources of other partners, like we work with the Initiative Foundation, we work with Region 5, a number of other organizations. And then we really do evaluate what are the outcomes. How has this project led to other opportunities? You know.
You said you have 4 or 5 projects you'd like to talk about today. Maybe you could just cover those a little bit.
We can talk a little bit about one of the areas that we're working in is agriculture and agriculture and local foods. And our office is based at the Central Lakes College Ag Center in Staples. And so that's a real a natural connection to a lot of the things that are going there. Statewide, each of the regional partnerships is working in the area of local foods. That is really trying to increase products and purchase of food grown locally. In the central region, we really focused a lot initially on developing farmers markets and in research on high tunnels. And so we have a research project at the Staples campus on high tunnels, and it's sort of like, it's not a greenhouse, but it's kind of a greenhouse. It's called a high tunnel hoop house. And there's irrigation, and the crops are grown in the high tunnel. So it allows the season, the growing season, to be extended. And as a result of this project, for example, we've done research now for the past 5 years at Staples. The university is now conducting research in high tunnels for organic products at the Crookston campus and in Grand Rapids at the university facility there in use in berries. And now there's more than 200 high tunnels being used by farmers throughout the state to help extend that growing season.
And when you say high tunnels,
it's a
how high?
Hoop house. It's
10, 12, 14 feet tall?
Yeah. It's on the screen now, so you can kind of see, and you can see how the products are growing. Those are, I think, tomato plants that are growing, and Terry Nennick, who's our horticulturist, is showing one of the visitors of, you know, what's being the product and how it's growing, and maybe that was a cucumber, I don't know what.
So you can start the season earlier.
You can
and
start,
it can
yeah,
go longer.
we plant earlier in the high tunnel, and then we can harvest later. And in fact, one of our board members has a research grant, and he is heating the irrigation water with solar power, and he is being able to grow into December, I think.
Wow.
I think there's only 2 months that he's not able to grow in that high tunnel.
Now, can people come and look at these projects?
Yes. Yep. And one of the other projects we worked on was the Living Legacy Gardens, also at the Staples Ag Center. And the Horticulture Day for the Living Legacy Gardens is on August 13th, and they will be able to see the high tunnel there, as well as another project also at the Ag Center, which is our corn burner. And that was a community-based energy project where we looked at installing a corn burner. The corn that's raised on the Ag Center would be used then as the heating source for the Ag Center, and then the ash residue could be used as fertilizer on the egg products.
Is that particular project being analyzed, evaluated to see if
yeah,
it's
you know,
cost
actually,
effective?
yes, the demonstration is basically over now, but we're still using that as a heat source. But they looked at the economics of it, and you know, the economics of the cost of corn, the cost of fossil fuels, and did that comparative analysis, as well as in evaluating the ash and how appropriate that would be as a soil amendment.
Could we just go back and talk about that Living Legacy Garden for
Sure.
a minute? For people who don't know what that is, could you just talk tell people what that is?
It's really a horticulture garden demonstration. Horticulturists from the university helped plan it, but it was a brainchild of a local person, Shirley Judd, who was at the Egg Center. And she was getting a master gardener, going through that course, and she needed a project, and she came up with this idea, and it's just blossomed into this amazing resource, an absolutely amazing resource. There's a children's garden. They now have a junior master gardeners program with it. And most recently, that we started working with Living Legacy Gardens to do a prairie restoration on site. So there's now a 1-acre prairie restoration demonstration project. So people can go out there and, you know, can see what's been done and look at different kinds of plants, and there's classes. And then Horticulture Day on August 13th is an opportunity to take classes and tour the gardens and see, you know, and that's one project that started with just a small amount of money, and now, you know, it's winning awards and being featured in, you know, Lake Country Journal.
I happened to be out there the day that some folks were planting some of those prairie grasses, and they actually were from North Dakota, where they have a lot of those native grasses. So that is a very, very interesting project. And then you have a natural resource component you've worked with too, don't you?
Yeah, that's really very important. And of course, the Bungo Creek project sort of falls into the natural resource element. But one way, as Tenley had mentioned earlier, very often, you know, the focus areas overlap. And natural resources and tourism is a clear overlap, particularly in the central region where our tourism is so natural resource based. And we've worked a lot with the Paul Bunyan Scenic Byway as well as with the Lake Country Scenic Byway in featuring natural resource elements along these byways. And we've worked with the Upgard Wildlife Management Area, for example, along the Paul Bunyan Scenic Byway, and also developing.
And where's that at located?
It's in Crow Wing County, and it goes, the Paul Bunyan Scenic Byway goes around the Whitefish chain of lakes and the north side of Pelican.
Okay.
So it's County Road 16, and then it goes around, so it hits Breezy Point, Cross Lake, Pequot Lakes, up to Pine River.
And currently, how many projects do you have going on?
What did we just fund? 4?
Yeah, we just funded 3 or 4 at the June
meeting.
meeting. So I'd say we probably have close to a dozen projects that are in some phase of, you know, activity, some winding down, you know, some just starting up.
An example, the Living Legacy Gardens, do they still need you to help them financially, or are they on their own?
No, they are on their own.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's part of that whole sustainability, you know, as well.
Right.
So that the projects need to be sustainable themselves.
So that's pretty cool, because I think the Living Legacy Gardens has probably been there, I don't know how long, 10, 12 years now?
Yeah,
Maybe
it was
not that
one of
long.
the first projects that was funded by the partnership, and it's probably been 8 to 10 years.
Have you had anybody approach your board about wind energy?
Yes.
Have you?
Now, that actually was before I got on the board too, but we have a really interesting and amazing project. We helped fund a wind tower in Park Rapids outside the elementary school.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And what it does, it's an education project. It generates energy, but what it really is set up to do, because that's not necessarily the prime area for generating wind energy, it's set up as an education project, and it's wired into the school where the students actually read the meters and do the tallying, and they're learning not only about the wind-generated electricity, but they're also learning about future employment, future careers, because they're learning how to read that data and then what you can do with it.
Mm-hmm. And it's being incorporated into the math curriculum, science curriculum, et cetera.
You know, if you looked at some of the projects and the ideas that you have back in the 60s or 70s, this would have been considered pretty radical then, wouldn't it? I think it's kind of interesting, the
Maybe not in the
sustainability
60s.
part is becoming mainstream. I mean, I think that's, to me, that's really an interesting piece of this. How many different sites do you have that you work on in your particular partnership region here? How many different sites where you have things that people could go see?
Oh my, well, I probably, as many sites as we have projects, really. You know, there's a lot of, you can come to the Ag Center and see projects. You could go to Park Rapids and see the wind energy project. You could go to Kent Shearer's house and see the what he's doing with his carbon sequestration project. So there are sites, sort of all over where you could probably go and sometimes we do have tours. Actually, last year we had a tour of sustainable development, and this year I think we're planning to have a food crawl. In the Detroit Lakes. Well, we're going to be featuring a demonstration of a high tunnel, and we're going to be going to a restaurant that serves local foods and to a farmer's market. And we'll be doing that in October in the Detroit Lakes area. And that will be open to the public, and we will publicize it, and it will be free to the public.
I find it interesting that you're focusing so much on agriculture and food through the farmers market. Are you seeing that growing?
Yes.
Because I've read that the amount of people gardening this year is across the country is unbelievable. So it seems that you're right on the cutting edge of maybe something really unique happening here.
Local foods and community-based energy.
And one of your other areas is community vitality. Have you gotten any projects going on in that particular area?
Well, I think they all sort of connect to community vitality. I think, community-based energy systems supports community vitality. Natural resource protection and enhancement can support community vitality. Tourism does.
Okay. Well, we're down to our last 30 seconds. Could you give that website one more time?
Certainly can. It's www.regionalpartnerships.umn.edu.
Well, I think it's a fascinating projects, I should say, a very unique arrangement with the University of Minnesota and citizens. And best of luck to you as you continue down the road of new projects.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for being on the show. You've been watching Lakeland Currents, where we're talking about what you're talking about. I'm Ray Gildow. So long until next time.